All right. So thanks for joining us. My name is Maureen. I'm the Marketing and PR Manager for the University of Utah MVP Center, and we're really excited to kick off our Wednesday webinar series with our A3 report webinar today with Teresa Drillard, who's our Center Director. I just wanted to quickly talk about our center for those of you who haven't heard of us before. We're part of a national network, and each state has an MEP center, including Puerto Rico. This national network has been around since 1988 and worked with over 86,000 manufacturers. Our center is hosted at the University of Utah. We're in the Rio Tinto Kennecott Mechanical Engineering Building. And our mission is to provide services and consulting to increase global competitiveness for Utah manufacturers. And we do this through growing and retaining jobs, increasing sales, and increasing investment. And just a quick few words about our A3 report expert today. Her name is Teresa Drillard. She's our center director here at the MEP Center. And she's had experience in manufacturing for about 30 years, and her expertise is in operational excellence, operation management, cross-functional leadership, and in quality systems. And here is Teresa.
Hi, everybody. Hope you guys are doing good. I hope you have lunch with you, or you're going to be going to lunch soon. I promise I won't get in the way of that. We're going to talk today about A3s, and I suspect some of you may have already done your own A3s at some point in time, but we're going to go over the basics of it. And if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and put your questions in the chat box. We can answer them as we go through the presentation, and then if you need more information, we can touch base again at the very end of the presentation. So today we're going to go through A3s, and I'm hoping that you understand at the end of this all of the items that are listed on your screen, and that you feel comfortable enough that if you haven't done an A3 before, that you can go ahead and start learning how to do that and make your own A3. So we'll go over what an A3 is, how it's different from standard reports, how it builds problem-solving skills in your organization, a review of how the PDCA Plan, Do, Check, Act process is used in an A3, and then some templates and layouts. When people want to start using A3, you usually hear it referred to in different ways. It's sometimes just an A3, sometimes it's an A3 report, sometimes they call it a roadmap or a storyboard, and we don't really care what you call it as long as you do it. So we're going to go over using them, why you would use them, and the how-tos on this. So A3s originally came out. It's a Toyota pioneered practice of getting the problem analysis, corrective action, and action plan on a single sheet of paper. It's a very large sheet of paper. It's the international A3 is the international term, so it's 297 millimeters wide and 420 millimeters long. It's about 11 by 17 inch tabloid sheets, pretty big. You don't actually have to use that size. You can use any size. But I do like using the big ones because it makes it easy to get all the information in there and it's not crowded. The templates that are available are mostly available in your standard 8.5 by 11. So if you download something off the internet, it will usually be available to you in 8.5 by 11. So you don't have to have A3 paper or capability to print on an A3. A3s are not just a sheet of paper that you put things on. It really is the process that goes along with the A3. So you can think of the A3 as not a report necessarily, but a visual summary of the problems and solutions, a story about the problem, a method for fostering discussion and dialogue, and a tool to support your problem-solving skills. So there's less emphasis on the actual format of the report and more attention to the underlying thinking about the problems and the solutions that you're recording on your A3. Your entire plan will end up on this A3 sheet. So it's typically very visual and concise, not that many words, even though you are telling a story. It fosters dialogue. The A3 is a living document that should be used with different departments cross-functionally within your own team to talk about the problem and the solutions. And it really is about this process of being good problem solvers. So it's not the format, it's not the paper size, but it's the process and the thinking that goes behind doing an A3 that really adds the value. For us, when I'm working with a team, when I'm building my own team or working with manufacturers, I find that the A3 is a great way to talk with them, ask questions about the problem, coach your staff or coach people along with where they need to be going in their problem solving, and teach how to do things. So it's really a useful tool for managers. They can use this as an interaction with their team, maybe even with employees on another team to help them develop skills. And it's always important to ask questions about what has already been tried, where they have already looked for solutions or problem solving, and to find that opportunity to teach a new skill that will be helpful in solving the problem that they have and the one that they're working on with that A3. We often hear a problem well stated is half solved, and that's true as well with the A3. You definitely want to have a good definition of what the problem is and what it isn't, and that would be one of the first things that you're doing on your A3. So I think all companies, all manufacturers have problems, and we all are trying to solve those. So developing the skill set of your team and your staff to be really efficient, good problem solvers is important. It's maybe more important than how well someone might do on a particular A3. So the folks that are working on the A3, they will actually have to go to where the problem is. They'll have to understand everything that's going on with that. And sometimes it can be a really messy, complicated, complex problem. And they'll need to document the facts and the data around that. So going and getting all those facts and that data about the problem before they begin to brainstorm possible countermeasures is really important. And you'll want all of that recorded on the A3, probably in some kind of chart or summary graph, but there you will record the information that you gather during your investigation phase. I think another phrase that I really like a lot is this one by Taiichi Ono: having no problem is the biggest problem of all. So it's important for your staff and for you to actually go out and see what the problems are and recognize that they exist so that you can fix them. I once worked with an A3 with a manufacturer on an A3. They had a really high scrap rate on the production floor, and they had difficulty understanding where that was coming from or even how to address it. The A3 really helped them understand the problem, understand the scope of the problem, what did it mean to them in lost sales or expedite fees for raw materials to replace material that had been scrapped, for overtime and the higher labor hours. So they really use the A3 as a way of completely understanding the problem and seeing all aspects of the problem. So it allowed them to put the resources in place to come up with a good solution. And I think an A3 is a great way to record that and to share it with others so they know why you're spending so much time on a particular problem. Everyone understands the problem from the same place. So this slide just talks about that as well, sharing the vision about the problem and how to approach it from a solution standpoint it's just a great communication tool. It's hard to get people's buy-in if they don't really understand what's going on. They don't know why you're suggesting particular solutions. The A3 has it all summarized, hopefully in a very visual manner, on one sheet of paper. So it makes it a lot easier to get that buy-in, to avoid delays, multiple repeat conversations with people when you're trying to solve a problem. So that's just one more way that the A3 is a valuable tool. So we had talked about all of the reasons why I use an A3 and why other people use A3s. It's just a great way to help your company move forward and get through problems. But we're Now we're going to take a look at a few examples and a template on how to do it. So if you Googled online A3 report template, you would get a lot of hits. There would be plenty of templates for you to use. I'm going to be sharing two templates with you today. They're both very, very simple. So generally what you'll have on an A3 as you're finding examples online, or if you have your own, generally you'll see a goal or problem statement. That's where you're defining what the problem is and what the problem is not, typically in the top left corner or near the top left corner of your A3. Underneath that, you'll record the current condition. This is another place where you would see graphs or charts that reflect a summary of what's going on. It could be your scrap rate, it could be the cost of whatever the problem is, it could be the amount of downtime or equipment issues. Data driven, what the current situation is, the current condition, and then some background. So on the background, you may talk about what you've already tried. You may talk about why this matters to the company and how long the problem has been going on. Maybe this is a problem that several people have tried to solve. Maybe they've been working on it for years and it just hasn't been solved yet. Or maybe it's something that's brand new, but it's very urgent. So the left side really gives an idea of what is it? What is the problem we're talking about? Why does it matter to us? How is it impacting the company? What are the current conditions? And then on the right side of the sheet, you usually will see what's the plan? What are you going to do specifically? How will you check to make sure that your plan is working? And then how will you act after that to make sure you don't have this problem again and that everyone knows how to do whatever it is they need to do correctly going forward? Sometimes that means updating documentation, changing the process, retraining staff. It could be anything really that ensures that this problem does not come back again. So when I go through an A3, there are many questions that you can ask when you're working with someone. And I really do prefer to ask people questions over telling them what to go do. Sometimes if time is of the essence, you do have to directly tell people what to do, but I typically like to ask questions when I'm helping someone build an A3. So the obvious, what is the problem? Who owns that problem? Or is it shared by many groups? Because you will want to talk to all of the groups that are engaged in the problem. What is the root cause of the problem? If you don't know what it is, how will you find it? And then what are possible countermeasures? How will you decide which ones to use, which countermeasures to propose, and which ones to use? How do you get buy-in on that? How will you know if your countermeasures worked? These are all the sorts of things you'll be thinking through as you build the A3. It's a great way to start conversation with your team and make sure they're engaged in the whole process. This also helps avoid jumping to a solution, which is so tempting, especially when you're under the gun. People usually just want to throw out a suggestion. We think it's this, let's just go do that. It's nice to take a little time and walk through a PDCA or some of these A3 questions, make sure you're on the right path. So many of you are probably familiar with the PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, and this really is well utilized with an A3. It's another way of just making sure that you're standardizing your approach on how to do an A3 and that you haven't missed anything while creating your A3. Most of this information does get captured on the A3, so historically, you know what you've already done to try and solve that problem. If for some reason the solution you did put in place didn't work, which hopefully you would find during your check phase, but it will let you see we went through these steps. We actually did look at all this. What did we get wrong or what has changed since we implemented our solution? And so we're going to look at, this is my second and last template or example. This one again, very simple. I like this one because it actually specifies what kinds of things you would put in these boxes. If you've never done an A3 before, this might be a nice option to start using because it is easy to follow. But it doesn't really matter. At the root of it, it does not really matter what your A3 looks like. or what the layout is like. It just matters that you're using a methodology to do your problem solving. You're recording it, you're sharing it, you're getting buy-in. People understand what's going on. It's a great communication tool. So that this is an option to use. If you didn't want to go look somewhere else, you could just use this format for an A3. It would work. So we're almost done. I appreciate your time today. I knew this wasn't going to be very lengthy, but hopefully you have learned why A3 reports are called an A3, why it's different from just a standard report you might write, how an A3 is utilized to build problem-solving skills in your company, in your organization, on your team, what sort of layout you would use and what kind of information you use on your A3, why the plan, do, check, act process is so important with an A3, and then some examples of what these might look like. And I'm hoping if you haven't done an A3, you're ready now to go ahead and do one. But if you aren't, there are additional A3 resources. A tremendous book, Managing to Learn Using the A3 Management Process by John Shook, is very good and very thorough. Also, Understanding A3 Thinking, critical component of Toyota's PDCA management system, is another excellent book on A3s. I've read both of these. Lean.org is a wonderful resource for all things continuous improvement, and they have lots of examples and articles on A3. Or if you just Google A3 examples or file type PDF A3, you will also get plenty of other examples and information on A3 reports. So that is our webinar for today. Thank you for joining us on the Wednesday webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can either put something in the chat box now, or you can contact us. You can see my name here and my email address. Well, my email is teresa.droulard@mep.utah.edu, or just go to our website, www.mep.utah.edu, where you can email us, you can contact me directly, or you can post questions for us there as well, and we'll get right back to you.